May is 25 years old. She earns $3,800 a month take home. She saves $500 every month. She does not invest. She does not know where to start. She tells herself she will look into it next year. She has been saying that since she was 22. By the time May turns 65, she will have saved $240,000 from her $500 monthly contributions. 40 years, every month, without missing a single payment. $240,000 will not be enough. Not because she did not save enough, because she saved in the wrong place. This video runs the numbers on two versions of May's life. The one where she never invests, and the one where she starts this month. The simulation is honest. The assumptions are conservative. And the gap between the two versions of her life at 65 is over $1 million. First, the world May is saving into. The best fixed deposit rate available in Singapore in July 2026 is 1.6% per annum offered by GXS for a 12-month placement. DBS pays 1%, OCBC pays 1.25% online, UOB pays 1.2% for 6 months. These are the best rates available from regulated Singapore banks right now, after 2 years of falling rates since the 2023 peak. Singapore's headline inflation rate in 2025 was 0.9%. In January 2026, it was 1.4%. The Monetary Authority of Singapore forecasts 1 to 2% for 2026. Over the last 5 years, including the spike in 2022 and 2023, Singapore's average annual inflation was 3.4%. Over the last 20 years, the CPI basket rose 52.8%. That is a long-run average of approximately 2.1% per year. Here is what those two numbers produce when placed next to each other. The best fixed deposit rate in Singapore, 1.6%. The long-run average inflation rate, 2.1%. The real return on the best fixed deposit in Singapore, the return after the money's purchasing power is accounted for, is approximately negative 0.5% per year. May is not earning anything on her savings. She is losing ground slowly and invisibly every year she holds them. For every $100,000 May saves in cash at Singapore's prevailing savings account rate of 0.05%, the standard DBS rate for balances above $20,000, her money's real purchasing power in 20 years is approximately $67,000 in today's terms. In 40 years, $45,000. She saved $100,000. In 40 years at current savings rates, it buys what $45,000 buys today. The safety of the savings account is real. The value it preserves is not. Now the simulation. 2 paths. 1 person. Same income. Same monthly savings. Same 40 years. Path 1. May saves but never invests. $500 per month into a standard savings account at 0.05% annual interest for 40 years. Every month without exception. At the end of year 10, May is 35, she has $60,150. The interest added, $150. A decade of monthly savings, $150 in interest, less than a single month's saving. At year 20, she is 45, she has $120,600. Total interest earned in 20 years, $600. At year 30, she is 55, $180,900. Interest, $900. At year 40, she retires at 65, $241,204. Total interest earned across 4 decades, $1,204. She contributed $240,000. She received $1,204 in interest in 40 years. Now adjusted for inflation. At 2% annual inflation, the real purchasing power of $241,000 in 40 years is $109,300. She saved $240,000 in nominal terms. In real terms, in what that money can actually buy when she is 65, it is worth $109,000. She lost $130,000 of purchasing power. Not to a bad investment, to doing nothing. She tries the next best option, the fixed deposit at 1.6%, faithfully renewed every 12 months for 40 years. At 65, $296,000 in nominal terms. Real value, $134,000. Compared to doing nothing, $25,000 more in real terms. 1.6% per year buys her $25,000 extra of purchasing power across a lifetime of saving. That is the return on being disciplined with Singapore's best safe instrument. Path 2. May invests. Same $500 per month, starting at 25, for 40 years. She opens a brokerage account and sets up a regular savings plan in CSPX, the Irish domiciled S&P 500 ETF. Irish domicile matters in Singapore. CSPX charges 15% withholding tax on dividends. The American equivalent, VOO, charges 30%. Same index, same holdings, different legal structure. For a Singapore investor, CSPX keeps more of every dividend payment. The long-run annualized return of the S&P 500 is approximately 10.5% nominal over the past 40 years. Singapore's financial planners and FIRE calculators use a conservative 7% for planning purposes, accounting for lower future growth expectations, fees, and the drag from dividend withholding tax. 7%. At year 10, May is 35. Her portfolio is $87,000. At year 20, she's 45. $260,000. At year 30, she's 55. $566,000. At year 40, she is 65. $1,310,000. Same $500 per month. Same 40 years. $1,310,000. Real value at 2% annual inflation, $594,000. Versus $109,000 in the savings account. Versus $134,000 in fixed deposits. The gap between never investing and investing is not luck. It is not a bull market. It is not timing. It is one choice, repeated monthly for 40 years, in an instrument with a 7% average annual return versus an instrument with a 0.05% annual return. That gap, $1,069,000, is the cost of the decision May made at 25 to save instead of invest. At this point, most people watching this video are thinking, but the market can crash. This is a fair thought. It deserves a fair answer. In January 2000, the S&P 500 hit its dot-com bubble peak. What followed was one of the worst bear markets in modern history, a 50% drawdown over the next 2.5 years. If May had invested $10,000 at the worst possible moment in the history of the index, the absolute peak before the crash, and never added a dollar, and held through 2001, 2008, 2020, and 2022 without selling, that $10,000 is approximately $62,000 today, in 26 years, without ever adding a single contribution. The same $10,000 in a fixed deposit at 1.6% over 26 years, approximately $14,700, 6 times less, from the worst possible entry point in modern market history. The risk of investing is real. The risk of not investing, the risk of watching inflation and time consume your savings without return, is also real. Most Singaporeans only see the first risk, The second one is quieter and never announces itself. It arrives as a shortfall at 65 that nobody planned for. Here is the specific Singapore number for that shortfall. The Singlife Financial Freedom Index asked 3,000 Singaporeans and permanent residents in 2024 what they expected to spend every month in retirement. Their median answer was $2,856 per month. CPF LIFE at the full retirement sum, $220,400 in 2026, pays approximately $1,780 per month from 65. The gap between what people expect to need and what CPF provides, $1,076 per month, every month, for however long they live. If May lives to 85, 20 years of retirement, that gap across her retirement is $258,400. Her savings account holds $241,000 at 65. The gap in retirement spending alone exceeds everything she saved, before healthcare inflation, before the unexpected, before the years she might live beyond 85. May's CPF Life payout at 65 covers the government's defined minimum, the LKY SPP minimum income standard of $1,379 per month, with approximately $400 to spare. She will not be destitute, but she will be constrained in a way she did not plan for. She will be watching what she spends on a grandchild's birthday present. She will be choosing between the dentist and the air conditioning repair. Now the version of May's life where she invested $1,310,000 at 65. At a 3.5% safe withdrawal rate, the rate Singapore financial planners now use because Singaporeans live longer than the 30-year horizon the American 4% rule was built for, this generates $3,821 per month. Add CPF Life, $1,780 per month. Total monthly income in retirement, $5,601. Against expected expenses of $2,856, monthly surplus of $2,745. She is not rich. She is not on a yacht. She is a woman who saved $500 a month from age 25 consistently in an investment account instead of a savings account for 40 years. Her retirement income is $5,600 a month. She has a surplus. She has options. She does not check prices before ordering at the restaurant. She does not worry when her grandchild visits. The difference between May's two lives at 65 is not income. She earned the same salary in both. It is not savings discipline. She saved the same $500 every month in both. The difference is a single decision about where those $500 went. There is a version of this calculation that is even more uncomfortable to look at, and most people never do it. The compounding curve is not linear. It is exponential. This means the growth that seems small in the first decade becomes enormous in the last decade. Between ages 25 and 35, May's investment portfolio grew from $0 to $87,000. 10 years, $87,000. Between ages 55 and 65, the final decade, it grew from $566,000 to $1,310,000. The same 10 years, $744,000 of growth, in a single decade at the end. Here is what that means for people watching this video at 35 or 40 or 45. If May starts at 35 instead of 25, losing only 10 years, her portfolio at 65 is not $1,310,000. It is approximately $870,000. She still crossed a meaningful milestone. But she left $440,000 on the table. Not by saving less, by starting later. If she starts at 45, 20 years late, the portfolio at 65 is approximately $260,000. The difference between starting at 25 and starting at 45 is $1,050,000. From the same $500 per month. Every year of delay is not a postponement. It is a permanent reduction in the final number. The years at the beginning of the compounding curve look flat and unimpressive. The growth there is small in absolute terms. But those early years are the ones that feed the exponential growth at the end. You cannot go back and add them later. May is still 25. She has all 40 years ahead of her. She opens a brokerage account on a Thursday evening. In Dowis, Saif, or a custodian brokerage with access to London Stock Exchange listed ETFs. Any of them work. She sets up a regular savings plan of $500 per month in CSPX. She does not pick stocks. She does not try to time the market. She does not wait for a correction. She clicks confirm. Then she does something she has been waiting to feel confident enough to do. She opens an SRS account with DBS, OCBC, or UOB. 20 minutes. She transfers $15,300 before December, the maximum annual SRS contribution for citizens and PRs. At her income level, this reduces her taxable income by $15,300. She reinvests the tax saving into the same CSPX RSP. She does this again next January, and the January after that. She does not watch the portfolio weekly. She checks it twice a year. In the years when the market is down, she buys more units for the same $500. She does not sell. She has read that the S&P 500 has never had a negative return over any 20-year rolling period in its history. She is investing for 40 years. She is not worried about any particular year. At 35, she is surprised to find her portfolio at $87,000. At 45, she checks and sees $260,000. At 55, the statement shows $566,000. At 65, she runs the CPF retirement dashboard at cpf.gov.sg. She sees her CPF LIFE payout. She adds the portfolio withdrawal. The number on the screen is $5,601 per month. She closes the laptop. She does not feel rich. She feels free. They are not the same thing. 60% of Singapore workers live paycheck to paycheck. 18% of Singapore household wealth sits in cash and deposits. 10% is in equities. The gap between those two numbers, the cash that sits in banks earning negative real returns, and the equity ownership that compounds, is a policy choice, an education gap, and a habit. It is not intelligence. It is not income. People on median salaries who start in their 20s and invest consistently for 40 years reach $1.3 million. People on above median salaries who save carefully in fixed deposits reach $296,000. The instrument matters more than the income. $500 a month. CSPX. 40 years. 1,310,000. The question is not whether you can afford to invest. The question is whether you can afford not to.